6 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. It's good to see you back. And I just want to thank all three of you. I want to thank all three of you for being here to testify, and also just to thank you for your incredible service. I did a little bit of research on all three of you before I came here, and I just have to say it's overwhelming, the amazing things you've done. So I just want to recognize all three of you for that incredible service to our country and to humanity as a whole. I think, going through this study, I hear two things. One, and you've all said it today, is the word invisible. Women are invisible. And the other thing that I've heard from a lot of veterans is the lost opportunity, that if our CAF, our RCMP, and our VAC actually served women more meaningfully, the opportunities that would come out of that would be profound. So I'm hoping that we can identify how women become invisible and how to change that so that we can see that opportunity increase on the other side. I'm just going to ask all of you the first question. Let's go back to the word invisible. And I heard clearly that when things are gender neutral, it just ignores women. And we know that women, again and again, veterans have told me that when they have a health issue, they're often told that it has nothing to do with their service. But we also know there's no research done to actually find out if it is to the service, and it doesn't seem to be of interest. And so often they are put in a position where they have to appeal repeatedly to try to get their issue addressed. So I'm just wondering if you have any thoughts about that and what we could do differently. And Leanne, if I could start with you, I would really appreciate it with your expertise in this subject.
Thank you very much. The invisibility, unfortunately, numbers speak volumes, and we know that the number of male veterans in comparison to the number of female veterans, the males are much higher. And just in general, it doesn't matter what you're looking at, the greatest number gets the majority. And I think that in itself is part of the issue is simply the small volume. If you look at the number of homeless female veterans in comparison to the number of male homeless veterans, you would soon find out that there are a lot more male than there are female. And so obviously what I think is happening is that we are just ignored, or we're just invisible because of our small numbers. I don't know how to fix that. I don't have any magic pill to make that better, but I do know that the awareness of Veterans Affairs in reference to this invisibleness of the female population, it needs to be brought to light.
That's an excellent question. And how do we deal with that? If you look at the homelessness issue, the big problem for women veterans is that they are invisible because we can't find them. They don't go to the homeless shelters. The homeless shelters are too dangerous for women. So what they do, as the senator mentioned, they couch surf, or they some of them do kind of live rough, and we don't see them immediately, and that's why they're invisible. So, and I think it does go back to making sure that VAC tracks these people, especially people who are being released on a medical release, right? They should be tracked. They should not rely on them to come back to VAC. VAC should say, where are you and how are you doing? So I think that's one thing that could make a difference. And again, for me, I think the transition issue is also something. But as Leanne mentioned, she didn't go back to VAC for 5 years. Me neither, right? I'm fine. There's nothing wrong. I'm strong. I can deal. We don't want to admit that we could use some help. I would say a lot of my veteran friends feel exactly that way. They don't want to admit it. So if there was an easy way, without having to go through all the paperwork and without having to end up in a crisis, to go back to VAC and say, I would like to talk to somebody. Let's make it easy for them during that period. Let's make it so it doesn't have to become a crisis.
And I'm going to go a bit more macro. So when we talk about being invisible, I can give examples in research. You have to do research on this. So you can have the numbers are too statistically small to track, but it's used to not do anything. We have to move beyond that. This is where you start with partnering with other nations to see how they're tracking them. The U.S., for example, which is why we've talked about the board. You start there, and if Canada is truly committed to their, I'm going to say women veterans here, all veterans, but I need to talk about women here, we will take those statistics, blend them with what we've got, and start off, even if we over-program to begin with, and we move back afterwards. If you build it, they will come. And so I would suggest that the statistically insignificant numbers that we often get in terms of research, whether it's women's, female and women's suicide in the Canadian Armed Forces or as veterans, we should not accept that anymore. So I would really, if there is a way of building into a recommendation, into research, is that statistically insignificant numbers are not an excuse to do nothing. That was so many negatives, and I'm sorry. That if we can then look at getting the boards together and partnering with other nations so we can at least start somewhere.